Okay, so we're continuing our next step in the Human Impacts essay writing process. And welcome to those of you who are joining us online. We're glad you're here. In our live class, of course. And so I would like to take you up to speed with where we're at in this process. So yesterday we learned a few isolated skills. We learned how to differentiate between paraphrasing and plagiarizing. Then we looked at the difference between common information and unique information. And we said that if the information is commonly known, we will want to paraphrase it. And if it is information that is uniquely known, like a piece of research, maybe it's a number, a statistic, maybe it's a quote by someone, then that information we would want to cite or quote or give credit to whoever gave that information. Today, we're going to actually take some steps to show you how to fill in your data charts. But before we do that, let's look at the big picture so that we kind of see how today's work fits into the overall framework. So I want you to imagine that your 5-paragraph essay is like having 5 buckets. So picture your buckets in front of you. And each bucket is represented by a separate data collection chart, by a separate page. So your first paragraph will be one bucket, that's your overview. This bucket will include general information about your region, as well as an overview of the problems in that region that are connected with ecosystems and the environment. That's one bucket. That title, overview of Borneo, or whatever your region is, Madagascar, or whatever your region is, will go at the top of the page. So you know what that bucket, what that page is going to hold. That's so that when you go to write your essay and you get ready to write that first paragraph, you have all the information you need for the first paragraph on one page, or maybe even on 2 pages. The second bucket will start your impacts, your threats, the problems in the region. So you'll have impact number 1, number 2, and number 3 will be your middle 3 buckets. Each of these buckets will have a title. Each title will be a different threat. Your threats are found by looking at the web page. Along the left-hand side, there will be a threats button. And when you tap on threats, down will pop a whole list of the threats. If you don't see that, then it's embedded on the main page, and you'll have to actually read through some of those main pages of information to pull out what are some of the big threats that are in that region. But most of your regions will have separate pages dedicated to each threat. You will choose out of the threats 3 threats, because you have 3 buckets. It'll be 3 different data charts. And you'll put the name of the threat at the top. So for example, one of the threats might be deforestation. One of the threats might be animal poaching. That means killing animals for sport. One of the buckets might be mining. So let's say those are my 3 middle buckets. Okay, those are my human threats buckets. Then at the top of each of those data chart pages, I would want the titles to be there. Deforestation, animal poaching, and mining. My 5th bucket, or my 5th paragraph, is about solutions that those regions have come across to try to help solve the problems in the middle 3 buckets, whatever my 3 threats are. So that solutions bucket is my 5th page, my 5th paragraph. Now let's say I'm reading along and I come across, it's about Borneo, because that's my topic, and I come across this fantastic information about gold. and how when you mine gold in Borneo, you don't just dig a hole, you have to use mercury. And you have to take the mercury and use it to extract the gold. And in the process of doing that, it gets into the water, it gets into the soil, and it makes people essentially get very sick, like get cancer and things like that, and die. Which bucket do you think that would fit in? Bucket 1, which is my overview. Bucket 2, which was deforestation. 3, which was animal poaching. 4, which was mining. Or 5, which was solutions. All right, raise your hand if you think it's 1. Raise your hand if you think it's 2. Raise your hand if you think it was 3. Raise your hand if you think it's 4. Raise your hand if you think it's 5. All right, bucket number 4. What was the name of bucket number 4? Tell me. Mining. Mining. Good. So bucket number 4. So I'd go to page number 4, the 4th data chart, and that's where I would put that information. Good. Now let's say I look a little farther and I realize that there's a coral reef near Borneo, just off the coast of Malaysia, and I think, oh, perfect. I love coral reefs. I know. I'm going to put this really cool information about how coral bleaching is occurring off the coast of Malaysia. I'm going to put that in my essay. That's what I'm going to do. All right, which bucket does it go in? Does it go in bucket 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Which bucket?
3.
Raise your hand if you think it's 1. Raise your hand if you think it's 2. Raise your hand if you think it's 3. Raise your hand if you think it's 4. Raise your hand if you think it's 5. Raise your hand if you think it doesn't go in a bucket. Raise your hand if you don't know. Okay, good. Honest people here today. All right, guess what? Did you hear coral bleaching as one of my buckets? Was it one of my 5 buckets? No. So that means it's really cool information that has nothing to do with any of my buckets. So guess what it goes in? The garbage bucket. It's not counted. We don't use it. We don't use information that doesn't fit in our buckets. You can't just randomly take random information that you think this is cool. I love this picture. I love this graphic. I love this thing, this information, this video. And I'm just going to stick it in because it's about Borneo. No, it has to fit the categories of one of your buckets. So that's really important in this process. All right, let's go ahead and look at the overview. Before you start collecting information, all of us need to make sure that we've chosen our region and filled out the Google form online. It was on my webpage. It was there last week, so you'll need to go to last week's page. You download and rename the data charts. We've all downloaded them. We will still need to rename them tomorrow. So if you haven't downloaded them, no worries. Tomorrow, first thing, we will download them together and get those renamed. Then you're going to fill out the titles for each page of your data chart. These are the buckets. These are the pages. You'll fill out the title at the top. Deforestation, animal poaching. Like, what's the big idea, the big bucket for each page? Then you're going to jump to the main steps for collecting your data. You're going to go to a source. Your source could be written information, like on your web page. You all have a link to your web page where you're going to start off of my web page. It's the one that was where you got to choose your 6 countries. Those all had links. You start at that WWF site and get the majority of your information there, because that is like the foundational website, and then we're going to use other websites once we're done filling that in to enhance the other information and support it with other resources. Okay, so we read and we ask ourselves, or we watch a movie and we ask ourselves, what's important? What is the connection? Which bucket does it go in? Which one does it connect in? Once I figure out which one it connects to, like mining, now I ask myself, okay, is this information common or unique? If it's common, then what do I do with it, class? What did we learn yesterday? I paraphrase it. If it's unique, what do I do then?
Quote it or cite it.
I quote it, or I cite it, or I give credit. That's the process. Then I will copy and paste into the chart, do the paraphrase work that I need to do in the last column of the chart, and then I'm ready to get more information. So, right now, turn to page 12, in your spiral notebooks, it should look like this, only of course I have a colored copy, and you have a black and white copy. And your chart is already filled in with some of the important information, but what I'm going to do is take a step back and show you how I got that information filled in. So we're going to start here. You'll notice that my chart has some blank spots. And you'll notice I have some things already typed in here. These are by way of examples to have us practice identifying whether each of these is a paraphrase, a plagiarized, or a quoted piece of information. So let's go ahead and start with my source. And it's called An Ocean of Plastic. And it's coming from Science World magazine. I love that magazine. It's coming from the April 17th, 2017 magazine edition. And as I look at this page, the first thing I want to do, because it's a web page, and web pages are cool this way, look for the pictures. Start by getting pictures in your head of what this whole topic is about. So scroll down before you start reading and ask yourself, are there pictures? Are there videos? In this case, there's a video that I can watch. And I'm going to watch it before I even start collecting data.
Well, first, let's talk about what it's not. It's not a floating island of trash like a garbage dump or a landfill. It's also not the only patch. They exist all throughout the ocean, and the Pacific Garbage Patch just happens to be the most famous. Garbage patches are large areas of marine debris concentration that are formed by rotating ocean currents called gyres, kind of like big whirlpools that suck things in. A garbage patch is made up of tiny plastic pieces called microplastics that are less than 5 millimeters long. It's more like pepper flakes swirling in a soup than something you can skim off the surface.
All right, so I would watch those videos because they are supporting everything that's been written about on that page. So this is a great video that gives me fantastic information so that I can really connect a lot of the new stuff that I'm reading into it. I could also quote from here. I could also see if there's common information that I could write down and then paraphrase to use in my essay. So that's a great place to start. I'm not going to put this one in today as an example, but if I were writing this from scratch for myself, I would totally use this as a piece of evidence. All right, let's keep going, and I want to show you some other pictures. Here's a picture that shows that if you throw the garbage in other places than where it belongs, it ends up in the oceans. Here is a slideshow, and you'll see that there are lots of pictures. Microbeads, they're showing you how microbeads can get into oceans and cause an enormous amount of damage in our ecosystems. Here is an animal that ate way too much plastic, unfortunately, and died. Here is a picture of water with little plastic pieces in it, kind of like that pepper soup that you just heard about. And here is plastic collected from the oceans that's on an art exhibit tour going around the United States to try to show people and advocate that we need to keep plastics out of oceans. So these kinds of pictures can start to help us think a lot better about the kind of information we're going to read. Well, as I'm reading, I run across this really great graphic. And I say to myself, I think this is cool. I want to use this in my essay. I want to describe what's happening here in my essay. So who will read this aloud for me? Nice and loud. All right. Rodney, can you read it nice and loud?
Swirling plastic. Swirling plastic often ends up trapped in swirls